Welcome to Success Leaves Clues, the first annual conference of Finance Transformation UK, which is the consultancy which spawned the Finance Transformation magazine, which is on the table there in front of you, which you're welcome to pass around. There's the most recent edition, and there is the first edition, of which many of the people behind me or in the room in front of me have appeared in. And they have made it the success that it is. It's a fantastic publication, and the genius behind it is a guy called Andy Peat, who turned 50 yesterday. So he's not here because he's out celebrating with Jack Grealish. Less said about Man City, the better. And that's his baby. So what I wanted to do, I'll truncate the agenda, so my hour will be truncated to facilitate us continuing on time. But I want to do a couple of things during the course of the day, and I'm going to share with you how I've gone from, I'm a one-man band legal entity as a management consultant. I am what you would term a contractor, okay, to something broader than that, and the manner in which I've done it, and the manner in which I've leveraged social media to do it, and you can share your own experiences. And I'm going to give you the experience of it so you can use it in your own businesses yourselves, okay? There's nothing to hide. I wish to share it all. So for the purposes of today, we have a full agenda. Everybody around me will be speaking. So if you come in here, the very first thing I want to do is I want a team photo of the speakers. So I'm going to ask Tom. And Tom, by the way, is the reason why that magazine was printed. When we got together originally, we were only going to do it online. And then the youngest member of the group said, would you ever go back to old school and just print it? Consequently, that's the reason why there is an Olympic champion on the cover of that magazine in front of you, which is all thanks to him. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to post the picture you've just taken on, you can post it on your LinkedIn file. You can tag here. So you know when you go to a conference and everybody tells you to turn off your phone, I don't operate like that. You can all turn on your phone. Because the very first thing I want you all to do is connect with Tom. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the opening first team squad picture of the day onto Tom's profile. And then what I want each of you to do is to comment against it. That's all I want you to do. I want you to just say, you know, you turned up, you're here, you're enjoying it. It's a fantastic location. And it's probably quite historic because this is most definitely the last event which will take place in this room. Potentially the stadium tour, which is available to you all at lunchtime, is the last stadium tour that could happen. Who knows? And you could be looking at a different type of environment for the club going forward, since some extremely wealthy people are obviously looking at buying it. As a die-hard Manchester United fan who first walked in here in 1982, I'm delighted to have waited until I was 52 years of age to finally sign a contract with United. I couldn't actually get to play football, but at least I get to stand in front of you good people instead. So that's the first test, and I'll ask you to, if you want to take a seat, and then I'll continue with my first piece. So if you want to take a seat. Just in terms of some of the housekeeping and some of the simple stuff, the toilets are behind me to the right. You may leave your phones on. You're all mature professionals at this stage. Do what you need to do. George is the cameraman. So George will focus on whoever is the speaker. So walking around up here, me and then Mark and then Karen for the morning sessions. And so it doesn't necessarily cut across ye unless you turn to speak and I pass you the microphone and you want to join in. Now, one of the things I wanted to accomplish with this was that we shared information, we shared skills, we shared experience, and I actually do, by luck or by chance or whatever, have a colossal network of people that I have met through my career. Everybody on today's agenda, I've worked with them or I've worked for them at some stage over the last 25 years. And they're good people. They said, you're doing your first conference, we'll come and we'll speak for you. And that's what they all agreed to do. I met Mark Vincent here for the first time about 15 years ago on a project. He was checking up on me for the client. I met Mark Saywell over here for the first time on a project for Deloitte back in 2005 when we were doing project assurance on IBM. And Chris will give you the option to go through a project assurance session at lunchtime if you don't want to do the tour. And project assurance is an interesting topic. Karen, I have introduced as MC on many occasions on conferences over the last 5 or 6 years. And her team at Hayes, she heads the highest or the largest finance and accounting practice in the UK, has populated 3 of the shared service centres that I've run over the years. So apart from standing up here with a microphone, the day job is actually to be a consultant and, as the name suggests, transform finance functions. That's what I've been doing. We have Nigel Coffey, GBS leader. I worked with Nigel, also about 10, 12 years ago. And we've been catching up over the course of the last 2 weeks because he's come over to be based in the UK. He's based in Bristol. As indeed several of you have travelled from Bristol today and are informing me there'll be a splinter group set up down in Bristol for the next one. So many of you have travelled and you got up very early this morning and you came last night. So thank you for doing that and for making the effort. I really do appreciate it. We did one previous event back in March around the magazine, and the way that we did it was we wanted to encourage discussion. So I encouraged the audience to introduce themselves. And that's what I'm going to give you the opportunity to do now, because I appreciate the experience, the network, the talent, and the capabilities that's in the room, where you obviously don't all know each other. So what I wanted to do was to go into an environment in which we go, I'm going to pass you the microphone. I'm going to give you 60 seconds, and you give it 60 seconds to explain what your background is and your expertise and who should be seeking you out during the course of the rest of the day. The most important thing for me is that we drive a discussion. I don't deliver a speech to you from which you do not respond. We give you the opportunity to talk to each other and indeed to all of the speakers throughout the course of the day. That's what I want to get to, yeah? That's the aim and the object of the exercise. So I'm actually going to turn to my main business partner, Mark. We always say he does the tech and I do the people and process piece. I'll let Mark introduce himself.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So my name's Mark Saywell. I have a couple of hats. You'll hear more about my primary hat this afternoon, which is focused on systems advisory, system selection, implementation, advisory and assurance support. Because you'll hear a little bit about that later, I'm going to focus on my second hat on this little bit. I'm also the Global Transformation Officer for a company called EM6 who perform global freight audit. So if either yourselves or anybody in your network operates a large company with a high volume of shipping, freight, inbound or outbound, they'll be aware of the implications and the cost and the complications of managing the payables on their shipping contracts and sometimes the challenges you get with accuracy from your transportation partners. We'd certainly love to have a chat with them. It's a key enabler for transformation programs. With all of the clients that we've worked with on the EM6 side, we've managed to generate quite a lot of recovery from prior freight invoicing and also savings going forward from their freight invoicing, and that creates a nice float of cash that our clients have been able to use to invest in subsequent implementation transformation programs. So certainly if you want to have a chat with me about that, would love to speak to you later. Can put you in contact with my team at EM6, and also when I do my little talk later on about the services I provide on the system side, again, it'd be interesting to speak to some of you about that as well.
The next person I'd like to introduce you to is Robert Brooker, who has a fantastic expertise and I've heard speak many times. Robert, give them a synopsis.
Thank you very much indeed, Mike. Very kind. As I said, Rob Brooker. I'm Head of Fraud and Forensics at PKF, which some of you may know, which is a top 10 accountancy practice. And then the question was already asked me this morning, so what have you got to do with finance transformation? Put it out there. Anyone any idea what finance transformation and fraud would be? Not many people look at it, do they? So transforming, let's be honest about it, whether it's systems, processes or people, you're transforming that organisation. You're cutting out layers. What does that mean in terms of fraud risk? If you don't know where the fraud risk lies, how can you address it? How can you manage it? So just think about it when you're doing it. Actually, are we addressing fraud here or are we totally ignoring it?
Thanks. Leads us nicely into the conversation I was having at the bar with Max last night. Max, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Hi guys, Max Kent. I am CEO of a company called PSL. So we provide procurement services around the data planning strategy for businesses. So we look at the AP data that comes in via invoices and put in extraction technologies, AI, automation technologies to pull the data out. And then we work with procurement teams to structure their data into something meaningful, work on cost savings, supplier relationship management, putting in the right systems, P2P systems, advising on those type solutions. and then working across the supply chain with suppliers to reduce cost and also carbon emissions and looking at the sustainability piece within procurement. I have a second business where I also provide training and coaching services. So I work with quite a few large corporate businesses to train their procurement teams on how they can work in best practice procurement, run tenders and all of those kind of things. So please find me on LinkedIn if you're not connected already. Love to speak to you all. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much. And I think we've actually demonstrated how a one-man band operates a consultancy in that I would naturally have a need to select an ERP system. I'm always looking for the savings and what can be done either by avoiding fraud or finding it in my procurement process. So you can see as we work around the room how that kind of operates, and the fact that it's fantastic to have such a large network of people who can help you who don't necessarily work for you. Nigel.
Okay, hi, everyone. Nigel Coffey's my name. 30 years experience, chartered accountant, trained up in Leeds many, many years ago. Just recently moved to Bristol to head up GBS with IVC Evidencia. And they're a veterinary company that was established, 10 to 15 years ago down in Bath, but has grown. Private equity owned, kind of Nestle also have a significant stake, grown to about 2,600 vet practices. And expect to significantly expand and and acquire more veterinary practices in the next few years. I'm coming in to lead kind of the finance transformation and kind of shared service GBS operations for that organization. Delighted to get here. Prior lives, first half of my career probably on the FP&A side, so country CFO, landing the numbers, landing the P&L. Worked for companies like Novo Nordisk, 11 years in Pfizer, leading their shared services, and then PepsiCo set up their European and global shared services, and Shire Pharmaceuticals, and then the last couple of years was with Alnylam Pharmaceuticals. We're a Boston-based biotech, but nice to meet everyone, and hopefully we'll have an interesting discussion later on. But you won't allow me use any slides, which is very, very strange.
No Irishman needs slides. Let's be clear. Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie Hennigan. I work for an organisation called Positive Momentum. We are management consultants, and I first met Michael in CGI, Logica CGI at the time, in 2010, I think it was, when I was a consulting sales director selling shared services and finance transformation to whoever would listen to us actually at the time. And we created the practice, and we had some successes, and then Michael left, and gradually the rest of the team kind of left CGI. So I suppose for me, I'm probably an anomaly a little bit in the room. I'm not a finance background. My experience is 25 years in sales, so I've often met a CFO to sign a purchase order. But more recently, moving into the management consulting world and actually advising clients on how to improve sales, I've started to include more of the CFOs in the conversations I've had, rather than signing it off, actually to be involved, because what I'm finding is more and more of the CFOs I'm coming across are actually more commercially aware than actually most of their sales teams. So I actually want them to be part of it and drive that change with me. So my role here today is, I suppose, as Michael said, is just to kind of listen, learn from everybody, and just to see who I could help along any kind of journey, really, based on my experience. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. Good to see you again. Next up is Gary.
Thanks, sir. Hey, I'm Gary Cole. I run a company called Lumalinks. We're a data and science business, so I'm the guy that can slate ChatGPT and tell you exactly why you should have it, and why I had several banks come to me and say, can we build one of those? And I say, yes, you definitely can, but it's called a chatbot, and it will cost you a lot less, and it then all of a sudden doesn't become cool anymore, and they don't want it, even though it does the same function. So effectively, we help businesses, and particularly financial leaders, take control. And actually, a great point is that people in finance normally have a lot more awareness of the commercial impact. So I've worked with businesses that have raised huge amounts of fund, and they spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on Google Analytics or Google Ads, and it makes absolutely no difference to their transactional data. And so kind of we changed the kind of mantle in a sense of, whether it's an ERP system change or whether actually you don't need an ERP system change, you just need visibility of data across the business. So effectively our job is, instead of the SaaS market, and there's some great books about why the SaaS industry is exploding and Silicon Valley was amazing, amazing is effectively they all create systems where you've got siloed data. So our piece is about helping businesses put data in their own warehouse so they've got visibility across their business. And effectively, I've got a really cool team of data scientists, and I work with specialist consultants like Michael and the team, Mark, around those projects where people say, well, actually, I just need to do this, and we want to take that SaaS company out because we're paying them tens of thousands of pounds, and actually it's our data, and SaaS effects will do. So hopefully we'll have a good chat later.
Gary will be on for the conversation around data science, AI, chat, and the thing I can never pronounce, GPT, later on. I'm going to get around to everyone during the course of the morning, but next there was a young lady who came up from London who's been dying to introduce herself.
We've only just met and you're picking on me already. Hello everyone, I'm Amna Zaidi. Yes, I'm from London. I came in last night. Lovely to meet you all. So I'm a chartered accountant and finance transformation director. I've been in banking for 18 years, transforming finance, putting in new processes, transforming the close, reducing costs, improving headcount challenges and new technology. And then took a break from that, and I currently wear two hats. So the primary hat is I'm still transforming finance, but in a retail business, which is a startup, and that's been lovely. We've just set up a scalable finance function for a company that's growing very, very quickly. And then the second role I have is a regulatory role for the ICAEW, where I sit on the audit committee once a month, and we govern the way audit firms conduct their audits and make sure that public interest is protected and everybody's operating in the way they should. So lovely to meet you all, and thanks, Michael, for...
More than welcome. One last one, and then I'll go through the rest as we go through the rest of the day. Chris? Just pop that across them. Thanks.
Morning, everyone. So I'm Chris Wu. I'm the Chief Product Officer at a company called Westgate Moore. So very similar to what the guys have said before about sort of recovery and protection. We recover overpayments and payment discrepancies made within accounts payable. So, there's a few guys I've chatted to, so quite typical in accounts payable. You can pay an invoice twice, you can pay an invoice 3 times, you can pay an invoice 4 times, you can pay an invoice 5 times. Then you might get a credit note in, and you might pay that as an invoice as well. So we're the guys that basically go through your data and find any sort of historical discrepancies and recover the money for you. And I'm here today with Russell, our CFO, and Matt, our CTO. So.
Chris is one of the first contributors to the original version of the magazine, which is there in front of you on the table. So thanks for that. Thanks for the support the whole way through. Okay, so you kind of get the idea. I want you to get to know one another. I want you to talk. I want you to share. So what have I learned in doing all this type of stuff? When COVID hit, I was, just as I said, an individual one-man band contractor. I got together with people that I had known over the years and I had worked with, and I said, what can we do in order to promote ourselves when we're all stuck in the back bedroom at home? And the idea that they came up with was come up with a newsletter. And I thought, well, everybody does a newsletter, so can we not go a little bit further than that? And the chap who designed this, he actually put his hand up and he says, you need to be doing a magazine. So I am an accountant. I am also the publisher of a magazine. It feels deadly, doesn't it? And then you're standing up at Old Trafford talking about football to all you good people. This is actually an example of what you can achieve if you decide to think slightly outside the box and stray into someone else's space. So whether you're coming at this from a sales perspective or a finance perspective, you will find opportunities that you can exploit. And this has led to the group becoming more known and Finance Transformation UK as a brand starting to expand, form partnerships with the likes of Gary on the data science side. So we operate on the basis of the fact that, well, we might be small, but if we know everyone and you add all that together, the impact is actually quite high. So we released this, just to give you some tips on the use of LinkedIn itself. So in LinkedIn, I have about 20,000 connections. It's hard to achieve that at the moment because LinkedIn have put in far more rules, but I accumulated them over the last 4 or 5 years. And we delivered the magazine online initially through LinkedIn. And it probably peaked in that last year. And it's probably now started to decline as LinkedIn changed its algorithm rules. And that's always one of the things I find a challenge in terms of how this is done. We have fantastic content. Now, how do you get the content? Because you know fantastic people to write them. How do you get that to go as far as possible? And it's a challenge. So we've tried it via the online LinkedIn method. We've tried it via email subscriber lists. And we've now moved into the event space because we believe if we put the right people in a room, I'm sure someone will give me an idea as to how to improve upon the distribution of what is some top quality content and doesn't just give me the opportunity to shake hands with Olympic champions. That's the magazine. The first event took place. Steve was one of the people who came. What was your impression of the first event, Steve, when you came down to London there 3 months ago? Do you want to share with them? Do you think we're on the right track? Pass that across.
Thank you, yeah. I was a bit confused about the location and finding the place. When we got there, it was just filled with really energetic, passionate people. I think everyone has the same thought around wanting to come to these networking events and take some value away from that. The best thing about it was there was the personal value that you took away from the inspirational leaders that were there, but some content around the day job as well. So I think as a first session, it was really, really good. And I think building on this now for this session and the content and IP you've got around this is great. So keep on doing what you're doing.
So it's a deliberate evolution. I actually put on the speakers for the last day were myself first to explain what we were all about, and then two people who I would describe as, say, A-list celebrities. This was the discussion we were having in the bar last night. So you would not necessarily know that Alex is a double Olympic gold medal winning champion and has been to 4 Olympics, because not everybody is famous, even if they are successful. The other lady is a friend of mine who's an Irish girl who'd gone through TV career, appeared on CNN, Sky, etc. Also wouldn't necessarily be famous because you only think of whoever's on Sky at the moment. So I deliberately said we weren't doing that for this session. I gave you the famous venue so nobody could be ringing me at 4 in the morning going, how do I get here? Or even telling me. And I removed the fame element from it because you can learn something from both of them. And actually, to be honest, they were brilliant speakers. And we will get them back for another event in the future. But what I wanted to do was to turn the thing around to the topic itself. So the day is lined up to, if you wanted to do a finance transformation program, there are people in this room who can help you. And there are steps through it that we're going to take you through in each of the sessions that go on. Mark will lead it off with the keynote shortly, which focuses on, well, what are the characteristics of a successful project in the first place? It doesn't really matter whether it's a finance project, a sales project, or anything else. The steps are the same. The characteristics of what leads to success, the success leaves clues as you look around the ground, they're the same, right? And then what I generally find is, once you've dealt with some of the consultant stuff, the most important thing to do is to find somebody to actually run the project. So one of the interesting sessions will be led by Karen, who'll say, well, what kind of characteristics are we looking for somebody to run a change program? Because it's actually the most important hire you're going to make. Your change program teams can be 50, 60 strong, but whoever's running it is the most important and single hire you make first. Then we're going to break for lunch, probably maybe about 15 minutes behind, or roughly. Lunch will be down the end. You have 2 choices at lunchtime. As I said, you're welcome to do the stadium tour of the most famous ground in the world. Or you can join Chris, who's going to lead a roundtable discussion on what project assurance actually means. And you're welcome to join into that. We would like to film it, so we will ask your permission before we actually start. And then we come back after lunch. So there's actually an hour and a half devoted to lunch, one to give you a chance to eat and chat with each other, and then either go on the tour or do the session with Chris. Then after that, we resume with the world-class purchase to pay. So of interest to Robert, Chris, Rob, and many more in the room will be led by Nigel, who's run some of the largest AP teams and shared service centres you're likely to see, even if he needed some consultant support. After that, we move into the session by Mark, who will help you know what ERPs are in the right place for a particular size and type of business, and an awful lot more beside. And then we get to the fireside chat with Gary, which we may, depending upon how the day is going, actually just turn it around and put it up there for the backdrop of Manchester United. And that's going to be an interactive chat in which we discuss all things tech from the point of view of a finance person who looks at it and goes, I've been hearing people bang on about one version of the truth since I was about 26, and I still haven't seen it yet. Gary assures me he can find it. So that will be more interacting because I'm sure you all want to talk and you all want to ask Gary questions. After that, then we wrap up with Martin. Where's Martin gone to? Martin, who's one of the best credit experts in the country, is going to take us to show us where the cash is in order to cash. So you've picked a system, you've found a leader, you've looked at the 2 major transactional processes, you've been told what characteristics are necessary to run a project. By the end of the day, Even if you had no interest in running a finance transformation project, you could certainly talk to someone else about it and spread the word. Okay? So that's the object of the exercise. Okay, so I generally make up my speeches when I'm flying. So the thing that has exercised me all week is obviously the organization of this, the attendance, who gets here, how they get here, all of that stuff. And despite an extensive LinkedIn campaign, the other thing you need to learn is you want people to attend your event, you must reach out to them in person. I would say maybe 10 to 15% of the people have arrived who came through the marketing campaign. And I can tell you that that marketing campaign was extensive. So that'll give you an idea what it takes to create a room of approximately 50 people. It wasn't easy, and you can go through what you think are the typical approaches to it, and you can still keep hammering and hammering and hammering away at it. People seem to think if they put something onto social media, everybody else saw it, but they didn't. It comes down to the size of the pool that you're playing in, and then how attractive and appealing what you put together is in order to get them to bite. And then after that, you're at the mercy of the LinkedIn algorithm, which can basically decide you've posted the same thing way too many times, and that's the end of it. That's just how the game is played. I have yet to find a better way to do it, and in building on the event the last day, there was another 25 people who wished to attend based on the fact that they had gone to the previous one and they wanted to bring their teams. Then I get into the whole issue of, well, where do I put it on? So I put on the last one in London. As Steve quite rightly pointed out, the location was actually fantastic when you got inside the door. The challenge was finding the door, yeah? It was quaint. It was it was actually the old Airfix building. It's a huge, big studio place. It was fantastic when everybody got there. So then I picked this as a location. And do you know what I find? Most of the people travel to be here. So as I was talking to many of you as we were going through the networking, you're going, oh, somebody's on the train, somebody's on the motorway, somebody's stuck in a car, etc., etc. You traveled to get to here. So I solved the fact that this place is easy to find, because you'd be hard-pressed not to find it. But actually, dropping a marketing campaign into the direct locational pool of where you were putting the event on wasn't a success. It was a learning point from what I went through. But it still all comes down to the personal touch. So had I actually decided at the start of this to pick out 300 people that I've interacted with in the last 3 to 4 years, let's say the last 3 years and just take it from COVID forward, I would have actually probably had about 150 people in this room. And I instead took the approach of the pool that I dropped my marketing into is allegedly 20,000 strong, but that's not quite how the sums work. So you start to learn all this, which is why it was interesting at the start to take the photo, but I didn't post the photo. Tom posted the photo, and then you can all connect with Tom as you see fit and comment on it and so on. So how social media works is actually quite interesting in attempting to pull events like this together. And you'll learn about the rules. So we had a briefing session every time we launched the magazine. We launched the magazine on a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock in the morning. Everybody was told to like, comment, and engage. Just like listening to the referee when there's 2 packs of rugby lads going at one another. Like, comment, and engage. That's all they were asked to do. And that's what it took to get something in the region of 30,000 views on an online publication. And what it really took was the fact that the cover is deadly, because most people don't read beyond that. Yeah? How much time and attention do you put on your social media when you're flicking through it? So we had great content. To print it costs money. So then how could I get it into your letterbox without extrapolating the cost even further? Which was the challenge, yeah? So that's why we haven't managed to make this a distribution success, although the content of it is of value to anybody running a finance transformation program. So those are just some interesting facts in terms of how we do this.